So thanks for coming, guys. I'm Ryan Charlesworth. I run a business called Raccoon Consulting. We effectively work with clubs to help them succeed, really. So end to end, anything from let's go back. Anything from sales and marketing, sales training, operations. So we work with I've worked with clubs from club openings, so pre-sales, brand design, all the way through. So quite often I'll get involved at the property stage, and then we take it all the way through to opening. The aim really to put in place all the things I've learned over the years to make you a success. Now, what we tend to find with a lot of clubs is you guys are brilliant at what you do in terms of, and this might not relate to you guys, but a lot of clubs we work with, you're brilliant at the on-the-ground stuff, training the clients, getting them where they want to be. But because you usually come from a fitness background, the business stuff isn't there. A lot of guys who own their own clubs, strangely, don't come from a commercial gym background, so they don't do the big David Lloyd's, the Holmes Place, all that pure gym, and then come into independent. They tend to be freelancers, decide, yes, this is what I want to do, and open their own gym. So they sort of miss that middle bit of education that sometimes really helps them. So hopefully this is where we fit in to help clubs. So in essence, sales are really the lifeblood of the club. You'll hear everyone going, yeah, you've got to look at your retention. Yes, you do. But ultimately, if you have nothing coming in at the front end, the retention becomes irrelevant. So you do really we need to focus on that. Without the clients, the business stagnates and dies. And like I say, irrespective of how good you are at retention, so even if your retention is 99%, if you have nothing coming in the door, it's going to be very difficult to maintain that sales aspect. So, and probably one of the big things that we find when we go and talk to people is lead generation and sales quite often are two completely different things. So we can hire a company that will come in and drive you loads and loads of leads through Facebook, through Instagram, through whatever. But if you don't have the sales process in place to then maximise that, once those people are in your club, I know clubs that have driven 100, 200 leads a month into their club and ended up with 10, 15 sales. And then they go back and they blame the Facebook ads company, they're rubbish leads and everything else, when in reality, when you look at the business, it's actually the process they've got in that business to deliver, or they've created the wrong offer. I know obviously you were talking about bringing people in on trials and stuff like that at the sort of low end price. Sometimes you get that wrong and you don't set up the journey properly, and those people don't join at the end. So the sales process is vastly different to lead gen. And we can help out with the lead gen. We don't do sales, the Facebook marketing stuff, but we can help with the other stuff. So I thought the best way to approach this was to have a look at the things that we see in clubs when we go and work with them. We've worked with, like I say, a range of clubs from independents all the way through to franchise and hotel clubs, and pick up the bits that if you were to work on and take in, then you can make significant change. So that's pretty much the things we're going to have a look at today, and we'll go through them one by one. So the reason I put this first, it's probably the biggest challenge we face. So when we go into clubs and you're sort of having a look at their sales process, what tends to happen is you speak to the owner. The rest of the people in the business don't tend to be involved in it, and the owner has full control of what's going on in the business. And what's really important if you want your sales to really thrive is you've got to give your team the ability to one, sell, to secondly take responsibility for those sales. Because if you put all your money into it, I've been there, I put all my money into it, I want to take control, I'm not letting you screw that person that comes in, I need that sale, so I take it all on. But then I'm also taking the operations on, I'm also taking on the planning for the classes, and I'm doing everything, and your staff are sat there, okay, they deliver the classes, they do their best, but it all becomes very owner-centric, and the guys in your team aren't delivering. I know it's wrong for you, Steve, because I've seen what you guys do, but it's really important that you get the whole team involved in the whole process, and this is when it comes into training. So when you go back to your businesses, it's really important to have a look and go, okay, what am I doing and what am my team doing? And I think for a lot of people, you'll be quite surprised at exactly what you're controlling, you're not allowing them to have an input, even down to the sales and marketing plans. You'll be amazed what your team can come up with. I always worked on the basis of new staff and the naivety of a new member of staff. You get someone who's not really been in the industry, they're trained, they don't know how to deliver a great personal training session. You get them in the meeting and ask about what campaigns are we running, what ideas have we got, and you'll be amazed what they come up with. I've been doing it 25 years, and a lot of the stuff that, yes, I've got some new, fresh ideas, but a lot of the stuff I do is rehashing the stuff that's worked. I know what works for me, I know what works for clubs, so I'll rejig that and I'll make that work. You get someone else coming in, suddenly something from left field comes out, and you say, oh, that's amazing, but I haven't thought about that before. And this is where the challenge comes in. If you really control that business and you don't allow it to expand, you don't get those thoughts. The other thing that's really important, and a lot of clubs don't do this, one, we see a lot of clubs that don't have business goals. This is really, it may not be you guys, but you'll be amazed that one, don't have a business plan. They set up the business plan to get their funding, and that's as far as it tends to go. Once they've got their funding, they move on and they literally go day by day. They don't have a sales plan, they don't have sales targets. I've worked with a number of clubs and you go in and go, how are you doing versus last year? I don't know. And you sort of go, now coming from a commercial business, if you've ever worked in the likes of Holmes Place or Marriott, your budgets are based on previous years. You know exactly where you are in last year, you're having it hammered down from a regional manager, from a national manager. But when you're in an independent club and it's your own, you don't tend to have that same focus, you don't compare it year on year. Now for those clubs that do, brilliant, because that's what you should be doing. You need to look at these trends and where you're going. You also need to set your team's targets. If you set someone, it's the whole thing, if you reach for the stars, you'll hit the moon scenario. If you don't set your team's targets, they will meander through the month, and then they'll get to the end. How many have we done? 20. Right, we should have hit 40. Well, we didn't know that. And it's really, the clubs that, these are really simple changes. I went into a couple of clubs back end of last year, and one of the big things we did was literally put those targets in place, and we did it 3 monthly, so they knew what they were going at. They would then set their budgets towards those targets, so January, February, March, obviously bigger marketing budgets than you're going to have in June, July. But everybody knew what those targets were. So when we were short of target with 5 days to go, you suddenly had this drive going, right, we've got to hit this target. What do we do? We're hitting the calls, we're getting out into town, we're doing more outreach. That's what happens when you've got targets. When you haven't got targets, no one's got any drive. They get to the end of the month and you don't have, if you go into any commercial business, you probably see it all over LinkedIn for, we've hit target this month 3 days early. You don't really see that in that many independent clubs. And it's a shame because I think it's one, because we're owner-centric, so the owner's taking control and we haven't fed that out. But second, if you've got those targets, your team then will be going, where am I? Where am I? Where are we? What do we need to do? And it sounds simple, but you'd be amazed how many clubs don't do that. So making sure your team know all your goals. We did a real simple thing at the end of each year, so depending on where your financial year, but you can start it whenever. Get your team involved in each area of your club. So pick your profit centres, so whether that be personal training, membership, retail sales, whatever it is. If you've got a pool, it can be swimming lessons. And get different team members creating a plan for that area and then present it back to the whole team. Now, yes, it takes time. It takes time out of their day to do that. Whether you've got the staffing levels to do it, maybe another thing. But you get them involved in the decision making and the planning of the club. If a team buys into what you're doing, they're more likely to deliver it and want to give extra. If you create a plan at the top and feed it out, it's a bit like the old World War I plans, you know, in the trenches where they're sending the troops out without, you know, I mean, they were sat in the back. You need to get them involved in what's going on. If they know the plans, they're more likely to deliver. Just a quick question on this. How many of you guys actually have a client journey in terms of, you know, when someone inquires, you know exactly what touch points are throughout that period? Do you guys have one? Yeah? Okay. If you don't have that, you don't know what I'm talking about. So whether it's sales or whether it's PT sales, it doesn't really matter. You want to know. So an easy one is if you get a new member coming into the club, this is the best way to describe it. What journey are they going on? Are they having an induction? Are you introducing them to a PT? Do we push them? I mean, it's a bit different with you guys, could be in group training, but are we pushing them into introducing them into different areas of the club? I might go into a club and go, I just want PT, okay? So you might go, okay, they're just having PT now, but what about all those classes that you do that you know would be beneficial to them with their training? They're only having PT once a week. What else are they doing? So we need to push them into those different areas that you want them to use in the club. The great thing is as well, if those are all different profit centres, so if you charge for your classes, you're now introducing someone to the classes. If they just join as a member and they suddenly want PT, you can push them into it. If you do an induction, not everyone does inductions these days because people are so used to using the club, but why shouldn't we give someone a free personal training session? Just something to think about. You're now introducing them to that personal training, they're more likely to buy it. The amount of clubs that we see when we go in and work with them that will sign someone up, allow them into the club, then start sending them PT offers 3 months later, never introduce them to PT. Now, if they've just come from a club, say a Pure Gym, or not knocking Pure Gym, but if they've just come from a club where the PT is rubbish, and now you're trying to sell them PT, their relationship with PT is vastly different to the relationship that should be in your club. So if your club is amazing and you could get away with charging £90 a session, great. But if they think your PT is only worth 20 and you're charging 90, that's a massive difference between their value. That value proposition is massively different. So the first things you need to do is have these journeys in mind. So what's your sales process? So from the moment they phone up or email or inquire on Facebook, what's that journey? What's the contact? Yes, we all have the funnels. I know a lot of you guys will have automated funnels now for these things. But what are those touch points? If you've got funnels, great, because you'll have already created them. But what are the personal touch points along that journey? At what point do they get a telephone call? At what point do they get sent in for a tour? How does that tour look? What are we trying to get away with that tour? And how many people on that tour are literally just giving a museum tour? So literally sit them down, well, not even sit them down, walk them in, yeah, we'll show you around the club, walk around the club. I mean, that's not a sales tour. We need to find out what are their goals. If you're selling group PT like you guys are, the last thing we want to be doing is just going, here's the club. We need to find out exactly what their goals are, what they want to achieve, when they want to achieve it by, what their hotspots are, and how we're going to do it before we even stand up and show them the club and what we can do for them. And that's all about creating your journeys. So I would definitely spend some time with your team defining your journeys. There's one club, James isn't here, but if you look at like James at Wild Training, his journeys are spread out. I think yours are quite well defined as well, Steve, to be fair, I've seen yours. But if you have those journeys set out, your team know what you do. So you guys might deliver an excellent service. That person who comes in gets an amazing tour, but Johnny behind you, he gives them a museum tour. So you've got to make sure that everybody knows these journeys. And a lot of the stuff that we do with clubs is sitting down and going, okay, one, we define it, then we train it out, then we get someone like Pro Insight or someone like that in to come and mystery shop it to make sure that what we've trained is being delivered. If you guys don't do mystery shopping, just out of interest, guys, I would highly recommend speaking to Pro Insight and getting mystery shopping done, even if you do it once a quarter, once every 6 months, because then you work out what you're doing and then you get someone who's anonymous, come in, they video it, and they show you exactly where you're at. If you're not doing that, how do you know your teams are delivering? You might be in the business all the day seeing what's going on, but you don't really know what they're doing when you're not there. But definitely give those guys a shout. Staff training goes without saying. If you're not training your staff regularly, guys, you really need to start quarterly at a minimum. Even if they've done sales training, you need to keep doing sales training, training on the journey, customer service training. Whatever you've defined what your clubs are, you need to keep reiterating that. One of the big things that I find all the time, people hate role play, but role play is what gets it right. Everyone hates role play. It doesn't matter how good at it you are. There's very few people that walk in and go, yeah, let's do some role play. I love it. But the more you do it, and if they can do it with themselves and joke and put themselves under pressure, the more likely they're doing it. And it only takes 10 minutes, 15 minutes in a team meeting, and just pick what you're going to do. Right, today we're doing sales training, today we're doing telephone calls, today we're going to do the PT training. I worked for a business that was predominantly PT. I won't name them, but we used to spend a lot of time on the process of a free PT to a sales PT. And we used to train that patter out all the time. So how do you think you feel if you saw me a little bit more often? That's all we asked after every PT, that one question. How do you think you feel if you trained with me a little bit more often? Or you saw me a little bit more often? Yeah, tell me a little bit. And got the conversation going. Once you got the conversation going, sales were about 60-70% conversion rates on PT. And what we were finding was the PTs weren't asking. They were doing the free trial or the free session. Oh, thank you very much. Do you enjoy that? Yeah, okay, see you soon. And that's how it was left. And you're like going, guys, you've just given this person an amazing experience and now you're going to let them walk away. It's a bit like, you guys have probably seen this in your clubs, where you do a sales tour or you see your staff do a sales tour, they don't ask them to join. You might not see it, but I see it all the time. So you literally do an amazing tour, they've sat down, asked them all their goals, they've toured them around. Do you like what you see? Yes, loved it. Shall we get you started? No. Okay, fine. I'll give you a call another day. There's no But if you train that out, train it how to overcome objections, how to ask for the sale, the chances are that person is more likely to join. I'm not saying he will join, but really I've seen conversion rates at 80-90% with the right training. When a lot of the clubs I go into independent wise, and hopefully it's none of you guys, but a lot of the clubs or some of the clubs I go into are around the 40-50% conversion rate on tours. And I think if you're working so hard to get those people in your clubs, why are we not working just as hard to convert that person? And let's be honest guys, we're not selling a car. It's not as if it's that person's coming to join. They've come in to inquire. They haven't wasted their time just to go, oh, Steve's got a nice club, but I'm going to go and see what he's doing. You know what I mean? It's not. They're coming for a reason, then we don't ask them to join and we don't convert them. So it's usually, if they don't join, it's usually down to us more than it is down to them. Structured process. Now this comes into the sales training again. You need to have a structured process with your sales. Now I still use scripts. A lot of people will look at me going, what? But if you've got a script and you train that out well, that person doesn't then need the script. I still have you, and if you want it, I can send it to you. I still have the tour sheets that we use and I train out. So it's literally got all the questions in terms of what you're looking to achieve, how long you've been thinking about joining, all those sorts of questions. And you sit down with that person on a chair and you ask them. You don't do it walking around. Sit down, have a conversation with them, find out what they want to achieve, and then you can tour them around. People expect to have to engage with you. I don't know anybody in all my 25 years that have ever walked into a club and go, I'm not going to answer your questions. It's just, I mean, why would you go and have a look and then not engage with the person? So it just doesn't happen, guys. If anybody says, oh, no, it's not for us, they really are wrong, guys. The point is you sit them down, you have a conversation, find out their goals. You want people in your club that are going to achieve. They're not going to achieve if you don't know what they're talking about. So have a structured process, and that structured process really it comes down to your club sometimes in terms of, do you have a reception area, don't you? How are we meeting and greeting? I mean, a lot of CrossFit clubs that I've worked with, the way they work, they can't have someone at the front desk to meet and greet. It doesn't work that way. But it's finding a way that you can engage with that person as soon as they walk in the building. What you don't want to do is have someone walking into your club, walking into your club, and then sort of 10 minutes later they're still stood there because no one's engaged, and you'll be amazed. I see that all the time because there's no process in place. And it doesn't take much. It takes an hour to sit down and go, okay, what does our club look like? What is the design? How can we make this work? If someone's engaged with you online, going to fall down that. If someone's engaged with you online, you should know when they're coming in. I don't know how many walk-ins you guys get, but a lot of the clubs I work with, they're pre-planned. You know they're coming in, they have inquired. So you can plan for someone to be available, someone to meet and greet them, someone to be there. So there really shouldn't be an excuse not to have a set process in place. And same again, that comes back then to the training, comes back to the staff knowing what they're doing, and it comes back to you guys monitoring and managing to make sure that process happens, okay? Oh. Now this is, I know I talk about, yes, we've got our process in place, meet and greet and everything else. There's a lot of stuff you can automate now, and if you don't have something online, there's plenty of companies that will do it. From FMA, I know they can do it. To there's a guy called Peter Hillier. He was going to be here. Oh, there. Oh, hey, Pete. So Pete runs a company that does it as well, and it's not vastly expensive, guys. I think Pete's is 95, is it? So 95 a month. All of those in place. So from the moment that person inquires, goes in the system, and then they start getting the automated emails, text messages, and everything that goes out. The great thing behind that is, guys, a lot of the actions that you need to take to warm that person up and get them going in the sales process is done for you. And then you guys just need to pick up 2, 3, 4 calls. Back in my day, 25 years ago, we didn't have great programs like that, show my age. And there was literally, it was manual texts. It was manual emails. It was, I remember, no word of a lie, I remember sitting with 5,000 letters, you know, putting them in an envelope, franking them, sending them out through the franking machine. I still remember that back in, the early noughties, married £2 a time on postage, and that's what we used to do. But now we've got great systems like this that we can literally automate the large majority, and then all you guys need to do is have a structured process in place that, I don't know, there might be a text message that goes out with Pete's system, and the following day you guys follow up with a telephone call to make sure that that person's received it and they understand and they want to book, okay? Don't underestimate this, guys. Especially if you're doing Facebook ads. Not everyone would do Facebook ads, but if you are doing Facebook ads, you have to automate the back end. to make it work. So the ads pushes it to a landing page pushes it into the system, and then you get onto the automated process. And at that point, you can then pick up the calls that go along with that. And hopefully, we get them at some point along the line. Some will react quicker than others. But also, the other thing just to say on this, don't use the automated as the only. If you rely on this, it will fail as well. So you've got to have a mix of the two. So this will make the process easier, but you've still got to have that telephone call and that follow-up. Having the right resources, same with everything now. This obviously depends on where your business is. So a lot of the clubs I will work with, unfortunately, don't have the staffing levels to deliver all of what I'd like to do. So I'd like to go in there, you have a sales team and we're able to do all these great tours and everything else. Quite often that's not the case. Quite often the salesperson is the coach, the receptionist, the cleaner and everything else. Or quite often they're the manager, the owner, the whatever. So it's just trying to have a look at it and go, okay, within that process, what resources have I got to be able to deliver all of this? So that's where the automation comes in. But then you've got to sit there and go, okay, most of my tours are going to come in the evening. So I've got to man that somehow. So I worked with a CrossFit club a few months ago, and a lot of their classes were in the evening. So they were driving these classes. They had nobody in the club then if someone walked in or wanted a tour. And most people are training in the evening. So that's when they're going to come and tour in the evening. They're not going to come at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when they're working to then train at 6 o'clock in the evening. So it's trying to man your club, make sure you've got the resources to deliver that. It's probably the biggest one we find. And I know I appreciate it comes down to salaries and wages and everything else. But if you're going to have a strong sales process in place, you need to make sure it's either you as the owner, manager that's around, or there's someone around to be able to deliver to those tours. There's nothing worse than either that person hanging around and then going, not for me, I'm leaving, or they get the museum tour. I'll quickly run you around between classes. That's not the experience you want. I mean, I don't know how much you guys charge for your memberships, but if you're a 10 quid a month, 15 quid pure gym style, then fine, that's what people will expect. But even then, I don't think you should be doing that. I think you should be doing it properly and offer a service and stand out from those lot. But if I know yours aren't cheap, Steve, so but if you're doing that, then you need to make sure that we're giving them that service. Because if you're charging more, the service has got to be from the moment they engage with your club to the moment they stop engaging with your club, hopefully in 10 years' time. It doesn't start the moment they join, it starts on the sales process, okay? Online options. Now, most of you, depending on what CRM system, will have an online joining option. I can imagine with your group training, a lot of it's done through online, if you don't have this, then seriously take a look and speak to someone who can put this in place. Most of the CRM guys, from Member to Club Right, Ashbourne's, they've all got online joining. So most of the systems will have it. But you don't have it, you need to put something in place. Work with Pete as well. So you've got the systems in place that basically takes them from the inquiry to a landing page to join or to go into your follow-up process. But online is vital these days. It's not as, what we tend to find is, it's more of a way of engaging with customers. I don't know how, Group PT tends to join online a lot more. Traditional gyms is a lot less these days. There still needs a lot more work. You get the inquiries online, and then you've got to manage the process a little bit more behind the scene. But group personal training definitely still works quite well online, I know that. So, it isn't rocket science, but it does take planning, if that makes sense. Creating an environment to sell is about having solid and repeatable structures in place. So basically, what we find a lot of the time is done on a women and prayer. So people will have their club, they're doing great PT, great service, they've got a couple hundred members in, they think they're doing well, but in reality they could probably be at 300, 350 if they had processes that were repeatable, the staff knew what they were doing, the training was in place, and everything just happened. And it's not fantasy to make this happen, guys. It literally is. It's a matter of sitting down and going, what do I need? This is my journey. Okay, that's what my journey looks like. What do I need in there to make that journey work? I need the automation. I need the sales processes. I need the right CRM system. I need the staff, and I need them trained. Once you've got that in place, it all does work. But everyone looks at it like it's a dark art sometimes in terms of making sales work. And so they don't do it. They just muddle through, throw loads of money at a Facebook ad, hope what sticks. I mean, I've generally seen clubs that have had 200-300 leads in a month, and we've done 20-30 sales off the back of it, because once they've come in. Things like free trials. Free trials are great. They create a lot of leads, and it's brilliant. Everyone loves them, but I'm yet to see a club that does it really, really well in terms of gets that free trial in. As soon as they arrive, they have the service. They have, you know, I mean, they're introduced to PTs. They're introduced to different elements of the club. 7-day trials, and we literally greet them on day one and then leave them for the rest of the 6 days. It just doesn't make sense to me. If we're going to do that, you may as well just do a 1-day trial, because they're not getting anything out of the other 6 days. What you want to be able to do is you've really got to go, okay, if we're doing 7-day trial, which are brilliant, they're just a lot harder to manage, but if you're going to do them, you have to have a touch point on day 1. This is what we're going to do. Day 3, we're going to get you into a class. Day 5, we're going to put you with a PT. Day 7, that's when you're coming back to me to talk about membership. But you've got to have those processes in place, and if you don't, it just doesn't work. And what tends to happen is we throw a lot of money at the likes of FMA and Pete and his stuff and whatever, and nothing happens, because they drive the leads in, and it's at that point it stops, okay? The other thing to consider is people buy from people, so you should hire great people. You'd be amazed at how many clubs don't have good people in their clubs. I know it's hard, but sometimes the people let you down. So making sure that you have the right people in your club, guys, who can deliver this. If they can't, use their strengths in other areas, but make sure you've got the team doing what you need them to do. Even awesome individuals need the knowledge and skills as well, guys. So I know it sounds really simple process, but I know so many clubs that hire great people and then never train them. So they get them in, they get them off the street, great PT, and then they sort of expect magically that this person is going to be great at sales. They're a lovely person, great personality, they're just going to be able to sell. And it's like, no, that doesn't work. In terms of getting someone overcoming objections is a great one. I know loads of people that are brilliant at touring someone around. They can make great, build great rapport, and then at the end of it, they go, "Would you like to join?" No, I'm going to think about it. Panic, instant panic. Oh shit, what do I do now? I don't know. And they just go, "Okay, no problem. We'll give you a call once you have to think about it." But what if you trained that person and says, "Okay, because I want to think about it," it's not an excuse. It's not an objection. It's just not. If anyone says they want to think about it, that's not an objection in itself. It needs to be, what do you need to think about? So you know that when that person's left that club, you're too expensive with the price, I need to speak to my wife, need to check out work because it doesn't quite fit, or whatever it is, my schedule. You need to know if you've tackled those and they're still not joining, you know why they've gone. But if you haven't trained that to someone who's never done sales before, the instant response is going to be, I don't have a solution, I don't have a way of dealing with that, so I'm just going to leave it. And this is where the training comes in. So I've seen so many great staff, great PTs, even great owners that lose out so much because they don't have the training that they want. Now don't get me wrong, I do sales training, I sell sales training, so it's obviously in my interest to tell you need training. But generally, guys, if you're going to bring a new member of staff on, don't get them selling the club until you've trained them properly. Spend some time. Yes, it's time out of your guys' diary. Yes, it's time that you guys have got to commit to that person. But surely if you do that and they're successful, one, great sales training for membership, they'll be really good at selling PT, promise you. The other thing to think about is a great PT usually makes a great salesperson as well. Simply because they know the product, they know how to overcome an objection, in the sense that if someone comes to them with a challenge, this is what I want to achieve, a PT is far more likely to this is how I'm going to do it. If you brought someone in who was a receptionist or worked at Burger King but got a great person, they don't know the industry, they don't know how to overcome, they don't know what that person wants. So PTs make great salespeople if, and it's a massive if you train them. Because generally they're great PTs and they're not salespeople. But what happens is you train a great PT to be good at sales, they'll also increase their PT revenue as well. Because they get into a habit of asking the question, shall we buy more PT? This is what you need. And they'll start suggesting, and it becomes a much better environment. But nothing works without great training, guys. So that's it. It's a quick whistle-stop tour through the sort of things that I see on a regular basis. Big one from an owner's point of view is that owner-centric one, let go. Let go and trust your teams, guys. If you've hired them, then believe in them. There's nothing worse for a member of staff as well that you've hired and then you micromanage. I always hated being micromanaged. That's probably why I work for myself, because I don't like working for others. But micromanaging someone, or don't allow someone to show how good they are, is the worst thing you can do, because they'll soon leave. They'll get bored, they'll leave. They won't buy into the values of your business either. And surely that's what you want. For your business to go forward, you want everybody to shout about it, and that comes from the staff as well. So that's me. Any questions? No? Fantastic. Anything you want to add to that, Steve? You do things really well. Pete, in terms of your system, would you, I mean, you're more than welcome since we've got time.
I mean, if you're interested in finding out about getting more members of lead generation, which links in really well with Ryan's sales process, then come have a chat and grab a card for it. How long do you think it takes to train up a member of staff to a point where, you know, where do you give them the scripts and everything that they're ready to say and get them to practice that? How long does it take to get there?
Generally, it's a couple of months, and so I'll generally go in one day, we'll do the training, and then I have to go back the following month to push that in. But you've got to make sure you're training this out in your team meetings as well. You've got to do the role plays, you've got to keep doing so. Whilst I can come in and do the training and give you guys a base, I give all the scripts, telephone scripts, the tour scripts, the follow-up scripts, help you with your journeys, create the journeys with you. So we'll sit there and go, okay, your club is X, this is what we need to do. So this is how many staff we got, this is when they're on, this is how we can do it. So we create all of that, and then we train it out to your team. What I've just linked, when I linked with the Pro Insights a couple of months, well, I've known them for years, but we officially linked with them. So we're now sending Pro Insight in first to see what you guys currently do. We're then able to sit down and go, right, this is where you're at, this is where we need, because sometimes a lot of the clubs have got a process in place that sort of works, it works for what you guys are doing, but we can maximise. So there's no use me coming in and going, right, okay, this is what I've done for 25 years, let's change everything you do, and this is what you're doing now. It's pointless. That's a waste of time, because what we're having to do then is take everybody back to basics to relearn everything, and you shouldn't have to do that. So we do the Pro Insights, we get an understanding, we get the videos so we see everything that's going on. We then work with you guys to create the journey that's needed, and then come in and train that out so that all your team know exactly what they're doing. And then it's a matter of working with you guys to do the role plays, to keep delivering, and then we come back and we do another Pro Insight a couple of months after that to make sure the process has been embedded. And where they haven't, then we either do Zoom training or we come back in and do more training. But usually it takes one full day's training, and then we pick up where the challenges are out of that. But it all comes down to the pre-work. It's working with the owners and whoever you want involved in that journey to create the journeys to then deliver the training. Because the one thing I've found is like I say, I've worked with a lot of commercial clubs, but I've also worked with, over the last 8 years, worked a lot of independents. Independent market, we brand you guys under one big banner. But just sat here, we've got a group training, we've got a proper gym with shitloads of PT, and doing wild training, which is, if you've ever seen it, is an amazing club, but they do things completely different. So everybody's gym's different. So to set this is one model that you use for sales training, just doesn't work for independents. I can do that with franchises. It's a little bit easier with franchises because they are the same thing, just in a different location. But you guys are so vastly different as individual clubs, you have to do that pre-work to then go, right, this is where we're at. But every club can have the models, every club can have a journey, every club can have a solid process that's repeatable. You guys can go on holiday for 3 months and it still should happen clockwork as you want it. And you should be able to send Pro Insight, look at the videos and go, yes, that's what we trained, that's what we paid for, that's what we delivered. It just takes a bit of thought.
Another question. So once you've trained up your sales team, what sort of percentage in uplift of people's joining more members have you found?
I've seen it go from 40 to 80. Depending on, so I work with a club down in Surrey, they're not here, called Fresh. And we went in there, and do you know what? We didn't even sell with an offer at Fresh. So we went in there, they were doing free trials. We took all the free trials out, and we pushed their, I know you're doing something different with them now, but we literally pushed it on what their club was all about. So they were very community based. It was all about the feel and what they were doing. And that's what we ran with in January, February, March, April when I was working with them. I started working in November before. But from January onwards, we didn't even do an offer. It was all about, look at us, this is what we do, this is how we help, we're a community. And their sales went up on average from about 25 to 45 a month. They've not missed target all year. So we sat down, we worked out the targets, we worked out the journeys, where they were going, and we trained and we trained and we trained. Every week we were on calls, Zoom calls, whatever it was with various people, and we got it right, and they changed their culture in their club. Because a lot of this is about culture. Because at the minute you'll have a certain culture in the club that the guys will be used to doing whatever they do, and suddenly now you've got to change that all around. And we did that with Fresh, and it's probably nice for you to go in there after that now, Pete, because now that's all there and whatever you're delivering in. And I think they hit target again last month, which is great. So they've had 5 or 6 months where they haven't missed target, where before, probably a little bit unfair because we obviously had a back of COVID, so it's a bit hard to tell, but they've been doing really well and they've been smashing it too. And they've got some big competitors down by them as well. So yeah, I mean, generally it's 20-30% uplift, which is, depending on your club, that can be massive numbers. But it's putting it all together. It's not about going, right, Ryan will come in and do sales training and my staff will be amazing. It just doesn't work like that. We've got to work on the culture. Sometimes we've got to work on the owner first, work on you lot, sort your mindset out. But it's true, we work on you lot, sort your mindset out and get you to give away a little bit to allow the staff then to deliver. And then when they do, it's amazing what happens. Any other questions?
What's it cost?
Cost-wise, it's £999 generally for me to come in and do it, but it depends on the club, depends on how much support. I usually work with clubs for 3 months, so it's roughly £1,000 a month, and work with you guys to do that. But it depends on the club. Some like Fresh, I worked with them for 6 months. Other clubs, it's just been 3. So it just depends on what you want. I had one club that literally just wanted the sales training, so I just went in and did that and then left them to it. So it really does come down to it. But grab a card and give me a shout and we can have a conversation. What sort of club is it you got? What sort of club? Okay, cool. Based in? Nice one. They're interesting ones to work with because generally the culture's very different. But when you put a sales process in, because people aren't used to it, it reacts quite quickly. When you go into a lot of traditional gyms, they've usually got some sort of sit down, talk about their goals and everything else. Where the guys you're dealing with, they usually know how they're training, so they don't want to sit down. They're not as eager to sit down and have a conversation with you. Whereas a traditional gym, probably look more like Steve's, which has a wide range of people. You can usually sit down and talk about their goals. I want to lose weight. I want to do, when it's less likely with your guys. So it's a little bit harder to embed, but they're quite interesting clubs to work with. And when you get it there, people realise, well, why didn't we do this before?
Just be clear, is that a brand for the whole team, or is it brand per?
The whole team. So we come in and work with the club. So yeah, so we work with you guys as the owners. Like I say, generally it takes 3 months because we have to do the Pro Insight stuff and we have to obviously work with you guys. A lot of it's about setting the cultures where you're at, find out what the processes are, what we need to change, and then it's about doing the training is just one part of it. The getting everything set up and getting you in the right place mindset is probably the bigger issue, and then it's obviously the follow-up afterwards.
So you mentioned a lot about like the training, what's like the other stuff that you offer within like that month, if that makes sense?
What's that, sorry?
So you said like you come in and you train the
Yep.
team, but what do you like offer like throughout the month?
So what happens is then, so I do a sort of 1 day training, then throughout the month we have weekly calls. So we're setting goals and going, right, this is what we need to do. So we'll look at your marketing, we'll look at your journeys, and it's for you guys then to come back to me. So if we're working on the journeys, for instance, we'll talk about it, have a good chat, and it's a matter of you guys coming back and going, okay, this is the work I've delivered. So then we can move on to the next stage, and then we move on. So it's usually at the end of month 1 that we do the training, or into start month 2. But it's usually what we do, we're having weekly calls to develop where we're going. Then we do the training, and then it's weekly calls after. Some of the weekly calls are actually with the staff rather than the owner, because what we're trying to do is embed that and back it up in terms of what you guys have delivered out. Sometimes it's nice to have that third party going, guys, you're not delivering as you should do.
Did you do anything on the retention? about a lot of sales.
Absolutely. It's depending on where your club's at and what it is that you need to do. But give us a call. We can definitely have a conversation about retention. Retention, a lot of it's around the journeys. So we start at the point of that person joining. What are we trying to introduce them to the various touch points in the club, and how do we keep that going? Like I say, the biggest bugbear of mine is we get members joined up, and then 3 months later we're suddenly sending out emails because we need sales. And if you've had the touch points all the way along the line, you never need to send those messages. And when you do, they hit home because they find it as a welcome message. I know what PT is, I know what that class is all about, I've tried it, yeah, I'm interested. Might not have been interested then, but they've been introduced to it. Then when you send the email and the marketing and the newsletter, whatever out, that resonates. But so many clubs, they'll join them, they'll let them go in, they'll let them do their own thing, and then suddenly they go, I need some money off these guys now, I need to increase my yield, trying to flog to them, and you're like, it's too late, you've not tried to engage with that person until now, because you want something. Now it becomes salesy. When if you've been engaging with them all the way along with what you're trying to do in the contact points, it's not a sale, it's an advice then. And it's a big difference. Retention also comes down to what systems we can put in place for contact points and stuff like that. Same again, we can automate a lot of the stuff, and not just with Pete's system, but various CRM systems. Clubright does it. Yeah, definitely Pete's. But you can automate a lot of the contact points as well, depending on how big your team is, because a lot of clubs struggle. So you'll see, I know Guy will talk about retention and stuff like that, and it's about sending various emails out, but also you want to be contact points. So simple, if you want to take one away for retention, the Fab 5 is probably the easiest way to do it. And it's a real simple process. So it's smile, eye contact, hello, every member, every time. And it sounds simple, but you'll be amazed how many clubs have you scan yourself in with a fob or a card or whatever on the desk. Person walks in, doesn't speak to a single member of staff. My regional manager at Marriott was a member of, I can't even think of the club down in Portsmouth. What's the big club down your way? I can't remember. But anyway, he wasn't spoken to in 5 years. Scanned himself, wasn't spoken to in 5 years. Now, how can you expect to drive retention if you don't even say hello to? Now, if you listen to the likes of Paul Bedford and people like that who do talks on retention, the big thing he'll talk about is those touch points. And you can increase someone's length of stay by 3 months just by saying hello to them once a month. It's bonkers when you look at the stats and you're sort of going, all we have to do is say hello. So when we were at Marriott, the one big thing I did when I was at Marriott, we took away the scanner, we put it behind the desk, so they had to hand the card over and we scanned them. So when we handed it back, we said, hello, Ryan. Hello, James. Hello. And you greet them by name. One, you got to know them, but secondly, you had to have that contact point. It was only one a day, but suddenly, and you can do it on the gym floor, if you don't have that contact point at reception, you have to make sure that I don't care who your PTs are, whether they're freelance, paid, whatever, they have to say hello to the guys on the floor, even if it's don't have to physically say hello, it's a smile and a greet. And those simple things make a huge difference. That's the number one reason people leave a club. They don't feel valued, they don't feel part of that above kit, above cleanliness, above everything, it's that contact point. If you don't have it, they will leave. So if you take anything away in retention, that's the one to do. Any other questions? Appreciate that, guys. Thank you very much for listening.